The final battle came to humanity's birth world. Earth hung in space like a blue marble, beautiful and fragile, surrounded by the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 2 million council ships formed a metal wall around the Sol system, their weapons trained on the planet where humans had first looked up at the stars and dreamed of touching them. In the ruins of Geneva Command, Supreme Commander Yi-Jun Park stood among the wreckage of humanity's last military headquarters. Half the building had been destroyed by orbital strikes, but the command center still functioned. Around him were the survivors of humanity's leadership: Admiral Hae-won Kim, General Suk-ja Lee, and Chief Scientist Ji-hoon Yoon. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Sunok Jung from her damaged console. "All human colonies have gone silent. Long-range sensors show no signs of human activity beyond the Sol system." Yi-Jun nodded slowly. The news was not unexpected. For 3 months, the Council had systematically destroyed every human settlement in the galaxy. Hundreds of worlds, thousands of space stations, millions of ships. All gone, only Earth remained. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked. Admiral Hae-won consulted her tablet. 57 vessels still operational, sir. Everything from the heavy cruiser Indomitable down to converted civilian transports. 57 ships against 2 million, General Suk-ja said quietly. The odds are beyond hopeless. Through the command center's cracked windows, they could see the Council fleet hanging in Earth's sky like storm clouds. The alien ships were so numerous they blocked out portions of the sun, casting strange shadows across the planet's surface. "Sir," Sunok said, "Supreme Leader Maltharix himself is requesting communication with Earth's government. He wants to speak with whoever is in charge." Yi-Jun straightened his torn uniform. "Put him through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the Council flagship Absolute Authority. Supreme Leader Maltharix was ancient even by alien standards, a creature that looked like a cross between a dragon and a machine. His metal-plated hide was scarred by centuries of warfare, and his artificial eyes glowed with cold intelligence. "So," Maltharix said, his voice like grinding metal, "I finally meet the leaders of this troublesome species. I am Supreme Leader Maltharix, commander of the combined Council fleets. You are the last humans left alive in this galaxy." Yi-Jun met the alien's gaze without flinching. "Supreme Commander Yi-Jun Park, Earth Defense Forces. We know who you are." "Good. Then you understand that your situation is hopeless. Your colonies are ash. Your fleets are destroyed. Your people are extinct everywhere except on this one small world." Maltharix leaned forward, his mechanical parts whirring. "I have come personally to witness humanity's final surrender." "I'm sorry you've come all this way for nothing," Yi-Jun replied. "Humanity does not surrender." Maltharix's artificial eyes flared brighter. "Foolish creature. Look around you! You have nothing left to fight with. Your species is dead everywhere except on this planet." In orbit around Earth, Captain Yong-ho Choi stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, humanity's last heavy warship. Through the viewports, he could see the Council fleet stretching to the horizon in all directions. The enemy ships were so numerous they seemed to form a second planet around Earth. "Captain," reported his tactical officer, "all human vessels report ready for final operations." Yong-ho nodded. 57 ships. That's all that remained of humanity's proud fleet. But they were still here, and they were still fighting. "All ships," he broadcast. "This is Captain Choi. Today we make the final stand. Not because we can win, but because someone needs to remember that humans never gave up." On Earth's surface, President Soo-Jin Kang addressed her people from the emergency bunker beneath Seoul. Above ground, the city was in ruins from orbital bombardment, but 10 billion humans still lived on their homeworld. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice carried to every functioning communication device on the planet. "We face our final hour. The Council believes they have broken us. They think that by destroying our colonies and our fleets, they have forced us to surrender." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "They are wrong. We are still here. We are still human, and we will show them what that means." Across Earth, people gathered around screens to hear their president's final words. In the ruins of New York, survivors huddled in subway tunnels. In the wreckage of Tokyo, families held each other close. In London, Paris, Mumbai, Cairo, and thousands of other cities, humans faced their end with quiet dignity. "The Council came here to break us," President Soo-Jin continued, "to make us kneel, to show the galaxy what happens to species who defy their will. Instead, they have learned something that every predator on Earth discovered too late. Sometimes the prey fights back. Back in the command center, Supreme Leader Maltharex was growing impatient. Enough words, humans. I will ask you once more, do you surrender? Yijun looked around at his staff. Admiral Heiwan gave him a slight nod. General Sukja stood at attention. Chief Scientist Jihoon's hand moved to a control panel marked with warning symbols. No, Yijun said simply. Maltharex's roar of rage echoed through both ships' communication systems. Then you will all die. Every man, woman, and child on your miserable world. Your species will be erased from history. Maybe, Yijun agreed, but you'll remember us. He turned to Jihoon and nodded. The scientist activated the quantum resonance cascade that Dr. Nayoung had developed months earlier. Every quantum core on every human world, every ship, every space station, began resonating at the same frequency. The cores that had been installed in secret locations across the galaxy, hidden even from the Council's sensors, all activated simultaneously. What is happening? Maltharex demanded as his sensors began registering impossible energy readings. We're saying goodbye, Yijun replied. The quantum cascade spread outward from Earth at faster-than-light speeds, carried by the quantum entanglement network that connected every human settlement. But this time the energy wasn't being used as a weapon. It was being used as a message. President Sujin's final broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. This is President Sujin Kang of the Human Republic. If you are receiving this message, it means our species has chosen extinction over slavery. We never asked to be heroes. We just refused to be victims. Her image appeared on screens across thousands of worlds. On Vrexia, the young alien Kethra watched with tears in her eyes. On Zeltos, resistance fighters gathered around hidden transmitters. On world after world, species that had submitted to council rule saw humans making their final stand. Let our end be your beginning, Sujin continued. Let our refusal to kneel inspire you to stand up. The council rules through fear, but fear only works if you let it. Choose freedom. Choose resistance. Choose to be something more than slaves. The quantum cascade reached critical mass. Every human settlement, every ship, every quantum core overloaded simultaneously. The energy release was visible from neighboring galaxies, a brilliant flash that announced humanity's passing to the universe. When the light faded, human space was gone. Earth was a cooling cinder. The great cities that had reached for the stars were silent. Humanity's colonies were scattered atoms drifting in the cosmic wind, but the message had been sent. On Vrexia, Kethra stood up in the public square where humans had made their final broadcast. Around her, other aliens were doing the same. For the first time in 50 years, someone on her world spoke words of defiance. We do not have to accept this, she said, her voice growing stronger. The humans showed us that even the weakest can choose how they die. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. The Vorthan uprising began 3 days after Earth's destruction. The Zelani independence movement declared their freedom from council rule. The Great Awakening spread from world to world as species that had been conquered centuries earlier remembered what freedom felt like. Supreme Leader Maltharex found himself fighting dozens of rebellions simultaneously. The Council's vast fleets, designed to maintain order through fear, suddenly had to respond to uprisings on hundreds of worlds. How? He demanded of his advisors. The humans are dead. Their example should have died with them. But his aide, a nervous creature called Plexthi, had studied the quantum broadcast carefully. Sir, their final message reached every world in the galaxy. Billions of beings saw them choose death over surrender. They turned their extinction into a symbol of resistance. Maltharex stared at the reports flooding in from across his empire. Rebellions everywhere. Species that had been peaceful for centuries suddenly taking up arms. Worlds that had never shown defiance now refusing to pay tribute. The humans were supposed to be destroyed as an example, he said slowly. Instead, they became an inspiration. Years later, when the Galactic Council finally collapsed under the weight of countless rebellions, historians would write about humanity's final gift to the galaxy. They had shown that there were things more important than survival. They had proven that even in defeat, a species could choose victory. Dr. Yejin Park, broadcasting from humanity's last science station as it was consumed by the quantum cascade, spoke the words that would be remembered forever. We never asked to be heroes. We just refused to be slaves. Let that be our legacy, and it was. The Council's response to Kepler Station was swift and brutal. 18 full battle fleets, the largest military force ever assembled, began moving toward human space. Their commanders were confident that the Kepler incident had been a fluke. Surely no species could resist such overwhelming power. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Fleet Admiral Gok commanded the assault on the Tau Ceti system. His massive fleet of 95,000 ships approached the human colonies with absolute confidence. Intelligence reports showed only 12 human worlds in the system, protected by perhaps 3,000 military vessels. It should have been a simple conquest. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "we are detecting unusual readings from the human colonies. It appears their civilian shipping has not evacuated." Gok studied the sensor displays with his 4 eyes. Strange. Most species evacuated their non-military assets when faced with Council fleets. It was the smart thing to do. "Perhaps they are too frightened to move," he suggested. "No matter. We will destroy military targets first, then demand civilian surrender." On Tau Ceti Prime, Colonial Governor Bo-Ra Moon stood in the Planetary Defense Center, surrounded by her staff. Through the reinforced windows, she could see civilian ships launching from spaceports across the planet. But these were not evacuation vessels fleeing to safety. "Major Xiong-jun An," she called to her military aide. "Status report on our defensive preparations." The young officer consulted his tablet. "Ma'am, all civilian vessels have been successfully converted. We now have approximately 20,000 ships of various sizes ready for combat operations." 20,000? Gokresh's tactical officer repeated when the readings came in. "Admiral, these readings cannot be correct. They show the humans have increased their fleet strength by 7 times in the past 3 days. Gokresh frowned. "Run the scans again. Civilian ships cannot be converted to warships so quickly." But the scans confirmed what seemed impossible. Every human cargo hauler, passenger liner, personal transport, and even small pleasure craft had been fitted with weapons. Mining ships carried torpedo launchers. Luxury yachts now bristled with point defense systems. Even school ships designed to carry children had been equipped with energy cannons. "This violates every principle of civilized warfare," Gokresh muttered. "They have militarized their entire civilian population." Captain Sang-Ho Kim of the converted freighter New Harmony listened to the fleet communications from his small bridge. His ship had been carrying grain between colonies just a week ago. Now it mounted enough firepower to challenge a Council cruiser. "All civilian vessels, this is Governor Moon," came the broadcast from Tau Ceti Prime. "Remember, we are not just fighting for our system. We are fighting to show the galaxy that ordinary people can stand up to tyrants. Make every shot count." Sang-Ho looked around at his crew. They were not professional soldiers. His engineer, Kyung-Suk Park, had been working on farm equipment last month. His weapons officer, Jae-Won Choi, was a school teacher. But they all had the same look in their eyes, determination. "You heard the governor," Sang-Ho announced. "Today we show the Council what happens when they threaten human families." The battle began when the Council fleet entered weapons range. Gokresh expected the human military ships to form defensive formations around their colonies. Instead, the entire human fleet charged directly at his forces. "They are attacking," his tactical officer reported with shock. "All 23,000 ships are advancing on our position." Impossible. No rational commander would order such a suicidal assault. But rationality had nothing to do with it. The human fleet attacked with a fury that defied military logic. Military vessels led the charge, but behind them came waves of converted civilian ships. Cargo haulers rammed Council destroyers. Passenger liners used themselves as guided missiles against enemy cruisers. Captain Sang-Ho directed his freighter toward a Council battleship 10 times his size. His crew worked frantically to keep their improvised weapons systems operational. "Captain," reported engineer Kyung-Suk from the engine room, "our quantum core is overheating. If we push it much harder, we'll lose containment." "Then we better make this count," Sang-Ho replied. He opened ship-wide communications. "All hands prepare for ramming speed. It's been an honor serving with you." The New Harmony accelerated toward the Council battleship, dodging defensive fire through maneuvers that should have torn the old freighter apart. At the last moment, Sang-Ho activated the quantum core overload, turning his ship into a bomb that cracked the enemy vessel in half. His final transmission echoed across the battlefield. "This is for every human child who will never see the stars because of you." On the research station Einstein's Dream, Dr. Na Young Lim was making calculations that would change the course of the war. Working with physicist Junho Choi, she had discovered something remarkable about quantum entanglement. "Junho, look at these readings," she said excitedly. "If we can synchronize quantum cores across multiple star systems, we can create a cascade effect." Junho studied the data with growing amazement. "Young, this is incredible, but the energy release would be enormous. It could affect the entire galactic arm." "That's the point," she replied grimly. "If the Council wants to destroy humanity completely, then we'll show them what complete destruction really looks like. Sometimes the only way to win is to make sure nobody wins." The battle for Tau Ceti raged for 6 days. The Council fleet had expected an easy victory, but found itself locked in the most brutal fighting in galactic history. Human ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting even when they were falling apart. Crews continued manning their weapons even as their vessels burned around them. "Admiral," Gokresh's aide reported on the 4th day, "casualty reports. We have lost 47,000 ships. Over half our fleet." Gokresh could not believe what he was hearing. How they were civilians. "Cargo haulers and passenger ships. Sir, they fight like they don't care if they die. Every ship that we destroy takes one or more of ours with it. They use their vessels as weapons even when their normal armaments fail." Through the bridge windows, Gokresh could see the wreckage of thousands of ships floating in space. Both human and Council vessels drifted together in a growing field of debris. But somehow human ships kept appearing from the outer planets ready to continue the fight. "Where are they coming from?" he demanded. "Sir, it appears they are converting civilian vessels in real time. Construction ships, mining platforms, even space stations are being turned into warships." On Tau Ceti Prime, Governor Bo-Ra Moon coordinated the defense from her bunker deep underground. The planet's surface was scarred by orbital bombardment, but the quantum core network kept the shield generators running. "Ma'am," reported Communications Officer Dalho Kim, "we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Other species are watching the battle. Some are asking how they can help." Bora felt a spark of hope. "What kind of messages?" "From the Vorthan resistance on Kepler 442. From the Zelani independence movement in the Andromeda sector. They want to know how we're fighting back so effectively." For the first time in days, Bora smiled. "Send them our tactical data. If they want to fight, we'll teach them how." The battle reached its climax when Dr. Na Young activated her quantum cascade system. Every human colony in Tau Ceti synchronized their quantum cores, creating an energy field that made space itself unstable. Gokresh watched in horror as the laws of physics seemed to break down around the human worlds. His ship's engines began failing. Energy weapons fired unpredictably. Navigation systems went wild. "All ships withdraw," he ordered. "Emergency jump to hyperspace." But the cascade effect followed them. Ships that entered hyperspace found themselves scattered across the galaxy. The Council's most powerful fleet was broken and scattered by technology they did not understand. When the battle ended, both sides had paid a terrible price. Every human ship in Tau Ceti was destroyed or damaged beyond repair. The colonies themselves were heavily damaged, their populations reduced by more than half. But they had held their ground. More importantly, they had shown the galaxy that the mighty Council could be defeated. On worlds across the galaxy, species that had been conquered decades earlier began to stir. They had seen humans fight impossible odds and survive. They had watched civilian cargo ships challenge Council battleships. They had witnessed ordinary people choose death over slavery. "If humans can fight back," whispered rebels on 1,000 worlds, "maybe we can too." The Council had won the Battle of Tau Ceti, but the victory felt hollow. They had lost over 60% of their assault fleet against what should have been an easy target. Worse, the battle had been broadcast across the galaxy, inspiring resistance movements that had been quiet for decades. In the Council chambers, Speaker Vextar addressed the emergency session with barely controlled rage. "The human resistance must be crushed immediately. If other species begin to follow their example, our entire system of control could collapse." But in the deep space between the stars, human ships that had escaped the battle were already moving toward their next target. They carried with them something more dangerous than any weapon: the knowledge that the Council could be beaten. And that knowledge was spreading faster than the Council could contain it. The first test of humanity's resolve came at Kepler Station, a mining outpost on the edge of human space. Station Commander Jae-Sung Kwon watched the approaching Council fleet through the station's main view screen. 40,000 ships moved through space like a metal storm, led by the massive dreadnought Eternal Judgment. Kepler Station had only 50 defensive ships and a crew of 10,000 people. By any reasonable measure, they should have surrendered immediately. But humans had never been particularly reasonable. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Bo Kyung Lim. "The enemy fleet commander is requesting to speak with you." Jae-Sung straightened his uniform and nodded. "Put him through." The view screen flickered, showing the bridge of the Eternal Judgment. Battle Coordinator Thexmil appeared, a creature that looked like a cross between a spider and a shark. His multiple eyes focused on Jae-Sung with cold calculation. "Human Commander," Thexmil said, his voice like grinding metal. "I am Battle Coordinator Thexmil of the Council Third Fleet. You are outnumbered 800 to 1. Surrender immediately, and your people will be relocated to Council detention facilities. Resist and they will all die." Jae-Sung leaned back in his chair and smiled. "You know, Coordinator Thexmil, that reminds me of something that happened on Earth about 70 years ago. There was this terrible storm called the Hurricane of 2157. It hit the city of New Seoul with winds over 300 kilometers per hour. Thexmil's eyes narrowed with confusion. "What does this have to do with your surrender?" "Well, the storm was huge and powerful, just like your fleet. It demanded that the city bow before its might. But the funny thing about humans is we don't always listen to demands, even when they come from forces of nature." The human commander stood up and walked closer to the view screen. New Seoul didn't surrender to that hurricane. The people fought it every step of the way. They built barriers, they reinforced their buildings, they helped their neighbors. When it was over, the city was still standing. "This is not a natural disaster, human. This is war." "Yes," Jae-Sung agreed. "And humans have been at war with overwhelming odds since we first walked upright. The thing is, we've gotten pretty good at it." Before Thexmil could respond, Kepler Station began to change. Panels across its surface slid open, revealing weapon systems that should not have existed. The station's quantum resonance core activated, creating a space-time distortion that made the Council ship's sensors go crazy. "What is this?" Thexmil demanded. Engineering Chief Hee-Jin Yoon spoke from her position at the station's core. "Coordinator, meet humanity's little surprise. We've had 60 years to study Council technology. We know exactly how your ships work, how your weapons function, how your tactics operate, but you know nothing about us." The first Council ships opened fire, expecting to destroy the small human outpost quickly. Instead, their weapons struck an energy field that absorbed the damage and redirected it back at them. 3 Council cruisers exploded in brilliant flashes of light. "Impossible," Thexmil roared. "No single station could have that kind of defensive power." "You're right," Jae-Sung replied. "A single station couldn't, but we're not alone." Across human space, other stations and ships began activating their quantum cores. The energy network that Dr. Yuna's team had created linked every human settlement together. When one was attacked, all of them could share their defensive power. Security Officer Chan-wook Park led a team of volunteers in small attack ships toward the Council fleet. Their vessels were tiny compared to the enemy dreadnoughts, but they moved with incredible speed and precision. "Remember," Chan-wook said over the radio, "we're not trying to win a traditional battle. We're trying to teach them that humans don't give up." His ship dove toward a Council destroyer, dodging defensive fire with wild maneuvers that would have killed a normal pilot. At the last second, he activated his ship's quantum core, turning the small vessel into a guided missile that punched through the destroyer's armor like paper. The battle raged for 6 hours. Council ships that had conquered 100 worlds found themselves struggling against a single human outpost. Every time they destroyed one human ship, 2 more seemed to appear. Every time they thought they had found the station's weakness, the humans adapted their tactics. "Sir," reported Thexmil's aide, "we've lost over 12,000 ships. This is supposed to be a minor outpost." Thexmil watched in horror as another wave of human attack ships dove toward his fleet. These pilots fought with no regard for their own safety. They rammed his ships when their weapons ran out of ammunition. They used their vessels as bombs when conventional attacks failed. "They're insane," he whispered. "They fight like they want to die." On Kepler Station, Jae-Sung was coordinating the defense from the command center. Half the station was on fire, but the quantum core was still active. His crew worked frantically to keep their weapons online. "Commander, reported Damage Control Officer Yun-Soo Kim. Hull breaches on levels 7 through 12. Life support is failing in sections 4 and 5. Evacuate those areas, Jae-sung ordered. Seal the damaged sections and reroute power to the core. Sir, Bo Kyung said from her communications post. Earth Command is asking for a status report. Jae-sung looked around at his battered command center. Through the viewports, he could see the wreckage of both human and council ships floating in space. The council fleet was still massive, but it was no longer the confident force that had arrived hours earlier. Tell Earth Command that Kepler Station is still here, he said. Tell them that the council bleeds just like everyone else. As the battle continued, word of the fighting spread to other parts of the galaxy. Species that had surrendered to the council without a fight watched in amazement as humans refused to yield even when faced with impossible odds. On the council world of Rexia, a young alien named Kethra watched the battle reports with growing excitement. Her people had been conquered by the council 50 years ago. They had surrendered after the first show of force, accepting subjugation in exchange for survival. Mother, she said to the older alien beside her, the humans are really fighting them. They're actually fighting back. Her mother, Virna, looked worried. Child, do not get excited about this. The humans will be destroyed, just like everyone else who has challenged the council. This will only bring more suffering. But Kethra could not hide her fascination. What if they're not destroyed? What if they actually win? Impossible, Virana said. But even she could not hide the hope in her voice. Back at Kepler Station, the battle was reaching its climax. The council fleet had finally broken through the station's outer defenses, but at a terrible cost. Nearly half of Thexmill's ships were destroyed or damaged beyond repair. Commander, his aide reported, our casualty reports are coming in. 60% losses, sir. The highest casualties we've ever taken in a single engagement. Thexmill stared at the small human station that had caused such devastation. It was barely functioning now, but it was still fighting, still broadcasting its defiance to the galaxy. All ships, he ordered, concentrate fire on the station's core. End this. The remaining council ships opened fire together, pouring enough energy to melt a small moon into Kepler Station's quantum core. The station's shields flickered and failed. In the command center, alarms wailed as systems overloaded. Jae-sung looked around at his crew one last time. It's been an honor serving with all of you, he said. The station's core overloaded in an explosion of light that could be seen from neighboring star systems. When the flash faded, Kepler Station was gone. But the message had been sent. Thexmill transmitted his report to the council with shaking hands. Third Fleet has taken the Kepler system. Human resistance has been eliminated. But sirs, you need to understand. They didn't fight like any enemy we've faced before. They fought like they had nothing left to lose. Across the galaxy, other species had been watching. They had seen a small human outpost nearly destroy one of the Council's most powerful fleets. They had watched humans choose death over surrender. And for the first time in centuries, some of them began to wonder what might happen if they stopped being afraid. The Council had won the Battle of Kepler Station, but in winning they had revealed something dangerous. They were not invincible. They could be hurt. They could bleed. And humans, it seemed, were very good at making their enemies bleed. News of humanity's refusal spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In the Council's military headquarters, Fleet Commander Zaltha stared at the reports with growing confusion. His 6 eyes moved rapidly across the holographic displays showing human space. I do not understand, he said to his staff officers. They have only 200 colonies. Their fleet numbers perhaps 50,000 ships. We have destroyed empires 10 times larger without effort. His aide, a thin creature called Rixtal, pulled up more data. Commander, their expansion rate has been concerning the Council for decades. In only 100 years, they have spread to nearly a quarter of this galactic arm. But still, Zalthus said, waving a clawed hand at the display. Look at these numbers. We have 17 full battle fleets ready to deploy, over 800,000 ships. How can they possibly think they can resist us? Meanwhile, aboard the human research vessel Prometheus, Dr. Yuna Choi was working frantically with her team. The ship floated in deep space, hidden from Council sensors by advanced stealth technology. Doctor, called Lieutenant Dong Wook Han from his station, we're receiving confirmation signals from all human colonies. Project Prometheus is ready. Yuna looked up from her work. Her face was tired but determined. How many worlds? All of them, ma'am. Every human colony, space station and ship now has the quantum resonance cores installed. If the Council wants to see what happens when humans refuse to surrender, they're about to learn. Engineer Hyunji Lim looked worried. Doctor, are we really going to do this? The theoretical damage could be enormous. The Council has made their choice, Yuna replied. They want to destroy us completely. At least this way we get to choose how we go out. On Earth, Admiral Taeho Lee stood in the war room deep beneath Seoul. The chamber was filled with humanity's greatest military minds. General Woojin Kim, Admiral Yoonji Park, Marshal Kyung-ho Seo, and dozens of others sat around the massive table. Ladies and gentlemen, Taeho began, Operation Prometheus is now active. Every human world is prepared for what comes next. General Woojin leaned forward. Sir, I've reviewed the tactical projections again. The Council forces outnumber us by at least 400 to 1. Even with our technological advantages, the math is not in our favor. The math was never in our favor, replied Captain So-min Park via hologram from the Outer Rim. But the Council has never fought humans before. They don't understand what drives us. Explain, said Marshal Kyung-ho. So-min's image flickered slightly as her ship adjusted its position. The Council fights to conquer. They use overwhelming force to make enemies surrender quickly, but humans have spent our entire history fighting impossible odds on Earth. Storms, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, ice ages. We learned long ago that sometimes you fight not because you can win, but because giving up is worse than dying. Admiral Unji nodded. The Council's strategy has always been fear. Show enough power, and the enemy surrenders without a real fight. But what happens when fear doesn't work? They panic, Taeho said simply. And panicked enemies make mistakes. Back in Council space, the panic was already beginning. Counselor Norvak paced nervously in her private chambers. Her forearms moved constantly as she spoke to her advisor. This is unprecedented, she said. No species has ever refused an ultimatum. What if other worlds see this? What if they decide to resist as well? Her advisor, an old creature called Venth, tried to sound calm. Counselor, surely you exaggerate. The humans are a minor species. When they are destroyed, order will return. But what if they are not destroyed quickly? Norvak demanded. What if they actually manage to fight back? Even if they lose in the end, other species might see that the Council can be challenged. On the human colony world of New Busan, Governor Jae Min-yoon was addressing his people via planetary broadcast. The colony was one of humanity's newest settlements, only 50 years old. But it was home to 12 million people. My fellow humans, he began, by now you all know the situation. The Council demands our surrender. They want us to bow down and accept their rule. But we are humans. We do not bow. In the crowd gathered in the city square, children held their parents' hands. Old people remembered stories of Earth's great struggles. Young adults prepared for the fight of their lives. We will not make this choice easy for them, Governor Jae-min continued. If they want our worlds, they will have to take them by force. And we will make them pay for every meter of ground. Engineer Sang-min Lee stood up in the crowd. Governor, what about the children? What about the civilians? The governor's face was grave. We have evacuation plans for those who want to leave. Transport ships are standing by, but those who choose to stay will fight alongside our military. This is not just a war between armies. This is a war between different ideas of what it means to be free. Across human space, similar scenes were playing out. On New Seoul, on Europa Station, on the mining worlds of the Outer Rim. Everywhere, humans were making the same choice. Fight or flee. Live free or die trying. Dr. Yuna received a priority message from Earth. It was from President Jin Woo-yoon himself. The message was simple. The die is cast. God help us all, she turned to her team. Activate the quantum resonance network. If we're going to make a stand, let's make sure the entire galaxy knows about it. Lieutenant Dong-wook's fingers flew across his controls. Network active, Doctor. All human colonies are now connected through quantum entanglement. Whatever happens to one of us, they all will know instantly. Good, Yuna said. Let the Council try to hide their crimes. Every action they take against us will be recorded and broadcast across the galaxy. In the Council's war room, Fleet Commander Zalthus was growing more frustrated by the hour. His intelligence reports painted a picture that made no sense. Instead of preparing to surrender, the humans were doing something unprecedented. They are not just preparing their military, reported his aide Rixtal. Civilian ships are being converted to warships. Cargo vessels are being fitted with weapons. Even passenger liners are being turned into fighters. Impossible, Zalthus said. No civilized species would arm their civilians. It violates every principle of warfare. Sir, another officer interrupted, we're also detecting unusual energy signatures from all human worlds, something we've never seen before. Zalthus studied the readings. The energy patterns were completely unknown to Council science. Whatever the humans were doing, it was beyond the Council's understanding. Perhaps, he said slowly, we have underestimated these creatures. Back on Earth, President Jin Woo-yoon stood on the balcony of his office looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the largest military force in galactic history was moving toward his world. In a few days, the first battles would begin. His aide, Secretary Min-jung Park, approached quietly. Mr. President, the final evacuation ships are preparing to launch. There's still time for you to leave. Jin-woo shook his head. My place is here. If humanity is going to make its last stand, it will be on the world where we began. Sir, the odds were never good, Min-jung, but sometimes you don't fight because you can win. Sometimes you fight because it's the only way to stay human. As night fell over Earth, similar conversations were happening on every human world. Parents tucked their children into bed, knowing it might be for the last time. Soldiers checked their equipment and said goodbye to their families. Scientists made final adjustments to weapons that might change the course of galactic history. And in the depths of space, the Council's massive fleets continued their advance, confident in their overwhelming power. They had never lost a war. They had never even been seriously challenged, but they had never fought humans before. Soon they would learn what that meant. The great crystal chamber of the Galactic Council stretched far above Do-hyun Kim's head. He stood alone in the center of the massive room, surrounded by creatures that could crush him without thinking twice. The air felt thick and heavy, strange smells from dozens of alien species mixed together, making it hard to breathe. Do-hyun kept his face calm and steady. He had been Earth's ambassador for 15 years. He had seen many things that would scare other humans. But this was different. Today, the entire galaxy wanted to destroy his people. Behind him stood his small team. Captain So-min Park wore her blue uniform with pride. Her hand stayed close to her weapon, even though it would be useless here. Admiral Tae-ho Lee looked tired but determined. Dr. Yuna Choi held her tablet, recording everything. Colonel Min Soo-jung stood at attention, ready for whatever came next. The council speaker rose from his golden throne. Vextar was 12 feet tall and looked like a giant snake with arms. His scales were black and shiny. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. Human delegation, Vextar began, his words cold and sharp. You stand accused of serious crimes against the Galactic Order. Do-hyun said nothing. He waited. Your species has expanded too fast. You have built colonies in neutral space. You have ignored our warnings. You threaten the peace we have kept for 1,000 years. Around the chamber, other alien representatives nodded their agreement. The Corvani clicked their claws. The Zelthans released angry smells. The Morgati flashed their warning colors. All of them wanted blood. Therefore, Vextar continued, the Council has decided. Humanity has 72 standard hours to surrender completely. You will give us your military fleet. You will tear down all your space defenses. You will accept Council control over all human worlds. The chamber fell silent. Even the air recycling system seemed to stop working. Do-hyun stepped forward. His boots clicked on the crystal floor. The sound seemed very loud in the quiet room. We thank the Council for explaining their position, he said. His voice was steady and clear. However, humanity must respectfully decline this offer. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the chamber exploded with noise. Aliens began shouting in languages Do-hyun did not understand. Some stood up from their seats. Others made threatening gestures. Vextar raised his arms for silence. When the noise died down, he leaned forward. His eyes were like yellow fire. Perhaps you did not understand me, human. This is not a request. This is a command. Submit to our will, or we will destroy every human world. We will kill every man, woman, and child of your species. You will be erased from history. Behind Do-hyun, So-min took a step forward. Her face was red with anger, but Do-hyun held up his hand to stop her. We understood you perfectly, Do-hyun said. He smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a wolf might show before attacking. Our answer is still no. The silence that followed was different from before. This time it felt dangerous. Like the moment before lightning strikes, Counselor Norvac, a blue creature with 4 arms, began speaking rapidly to her neighbors. Her voice was high and panicked. They cannot refuse. No species has ever refused a council ultimatum. Perhaps they are too stupid to understand, suggested another alien, one that looked like a walking tree. Their brains are very small. Do-hyun heard all of this, but his expression never changed. He had spent years preparing for this moment. Earth's leaders knew this day would come. The humans had grown too strong, too independent. The council could not allow that. Vextar's voice cut through the chatter. Human ambassador, I will ask you one final time. Will your species submit to council authority? No. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Do-hyun could feel the fear and anger of the alien delegates washing over him like heat from a fire. Very well, Vextar said. You have chosen extinction. Our fleets are already moving toward your worlds. In 7 days, the first human colony will burn. In 14 days, we will reach Earth itself. You could have lived as our servants. Now you will die as fools. Admiral Taeho stepped up beside Do-hyun. The old soldier's face was like stone. Speaker Vextar, you seem to think you understand humanity, but you have made one critical error. And what is that? You assume we fight to win, Taeho said. Sometimes humans fight simply because fighting is the right thing to do. Win or lose, we will not bow to you. Dr. Yuna spoke for the first time. Her voice was quiet but clear. Our scientists have been studying your species for decades. We know how you think. You believe that overwhelming force will make any enemy surrender. That fear is the ultimate weapon. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of alien delegates one by one. But humans are different. We have a saying on Earth, give me liberty or give me death. We would rather die free than live as slaves. Colonel Minsu nodded. Our military has run the numbers. We know we cannot win a direct war against the Council. But victory and resistance are not the same thing. We may not be able to defeat you, but we can make you pay such a high price that other species will remember. They will see that the mighty Council can bleed. Vextar's scales darkened with rage. Foolish children. You have no idea what forces you are challenging. We have conquered civilizations that existed before your species learned to make fire. We have weapons that can destroy stars. We have armies that number in the billions, Do-hyun nodded. Yes, we know all of that. And we still say no. The council speaker reared back as if he had been slapped. In all his centuries of service, no species had ever shown such defiance. Fear had always been enough. The threat of destruction had always worked. Security, Vextar roared. Remove these humans from the chamber. Send them back to their dying worlds. Armed guards began moving toward the human delegation, but Do-hyun held up his hand. We can walk ourselves out, he said. But remember this moment, all of you. Today you learned that not every species in this galaxy can be frightened into submission. Today you learned that humans do not kneel. As the small group of humans walked toward the exit, their footsteps echoed through the great chamber. Behind them, hundreds of alien delegates watched in stunned silence. They had just witnessed something that would change the galaxy forever. For the first time in 1,000 years, someone had said no to the Galactic Council, and somehow that made everything different.